Welcome back, guys. Episode 36 of the Vision Bod podcast. I'm Tristan Cannell. Alongside me, Jonny Stofko.
What's up, Tristan? What's up, everyone? Hope everyone's having a rocking day.
Absolutely. How's your week going, man?
It's going really well, really smooth, and
Big smile on your face.
Yeah, always a smile. Things have been going just as planned. You know, we keep working hard at this, guys. You guys keep giving us awesome feedback. We keep bringing on excellent guests like the one we're about to serve to you right now.
Yeah. Moodi Dennaoui is coming on today. Big special guests. A great nutritionist. Highly qualified here in Australia. Does a lot of top athletes here, including Sonny Bill Williams, Anthony Mundine. He's done the Dib Boys.
He's worked with Lauren Eagle. Moody's one of these guys that he's educated in nutrition. He's not only going to coach somebody to do like shows in regards to like fitness, etc., competition, but I'm pretty sure he's done them himself. So he's one of these teachers that will go through the process, learn how it feels to do it, and then teach through experience. So I'm excited to pick his brain.
Yeah, I think the great thing about guys like Moodi is they walk the walk.
That's right.
I think that's what you were just alluding to. Like,
yep.
I love people that, like, how many times do you see nutritionists? They're the most educated people in the world.
Yeah.
But then they don't look after themselves.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, too, when we're talking with our clients about teaching them a new exercise or teaching them a new way of thinking, maybe in regards to nutrition or lifestyle. I always tell them and reiterate that everything I'm teaching you, I do myself. And I feel it's really important for the integrity of the client and the relationship.
Yeah, that's not my number one rule too. I would never show someone exercise that I haven't done myself. I don't just pick one off for YouTube and just go, look, guys, we're going to do this today. Absolutely not. That's a big part of it.
In regards to nutrition as well, you see so many of these fad diets, buy this 8-week program, count this, count that, substitute that. At the end of the day, it's nutrition, and I feel whole foods, fruits, vegetables, clean, lean meats, a lot of water, that sort of thing is the way to go rather than filling your body with synthetic supplements and pretty much, I don't want to say taking the easy way out, but looking for shortcuts. Moodi Dennaoui is the guy who always preaches whole foods, doing things the right way. So once again, I know you're excited as I am to bring him on.
Absolutely. And he's, like you just mentioned, he's done those bodybuilding shows. I know that he's been in BJJ for the last 10 years. So
yeah, he's belted in that.
Yeah, he brings a very multi-dimensional look at both nutrition and training. So it'll be very interesting when he comes in to, really pick his brain. And it's one of those things that we don't always get to work with top-level athletes and the general public. So he's got that different perspective that he can kind of bring to the table.
Yeah, Moodi has a couple boxes ticked. He is educated. He's an athlete. He's a coach. He's an entrepreneur. Business owner, writer, all these things. So more than anything, this is going to be one of those episodes, one of those features where you and I, Tristan, get to learn, pick his brain, and share it with our audience.
Absolutely. Before that, guys, just a big thank you to yourselves, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, 75 iTunes reviews. That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
so,
they keep going up, man. We love that. That's why we do this.
It's pretty easy to do. If you don't know how to do it, get in touch because we'll teach you how to do it. You can literally do it in 30 seconds. But just go to the search button, search the Vision Board Podcast. Pretty much when you select it, the review button should come in there. Hit it, and then just leave us a little 5-star review. And we'll keep bringing you guys like Moodi. We've got some huge episodes coming up with the likes of Gary Vaynerchuk,
Joe DeFranco,
Jonathan Thurston,
Hoist
Gracie,
some bombs.
Nagar Fanuni's also coming on. Craig
Ballantyne, writer,
There's a
author.
number of now NFL guys that are coming on too.
Yep. So. We just keep bringing. We want to bring the noise. We want people to start talking. More than anything, we want you to take something from this. We're not just wasting our breaths. We're not wasting our time. We don't wake up and all we think about is this for no reason. We want to learn. We want you to learn. We want to share the knowledge, and we want to create a community of inspiring people and also educating.
Yeah, I can't agree more.
Yeah, so
just the best coming in, and I learn every week. Jonny learns every week. So
that's right. I'm always the dumbest in the room. That's a good thing.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. But guys, without further ado, actually before that, how silly of me.
You forgot. How
Populis. Big shout out to Populis, our major sponsor for the show. Populis, if you haven't heard of them yet, check them out at www.populis.com.au. They're a leading boutique management consulting company, really doing some great things across here, Singapore, Canada, and the United States.
Yeah, they're spread across, they're global, and we want to be attached to a global company, especially when this company is putting a lot of energy and leadership, integrity, taking businesses to the next level. So the more we get involved with Populis, you mentioned the leadership show. They have a podcast. They bring on top level, high level people. There was one, the episode I mentioned all the time was
Joe DeSena.
not, but before, not the Dalai Lama, but very high, it was a high priest, I don't know if he was a Buddhist monk.
Oh yes.
Yeah, they actually,
It's coming out very shortly. Actually,
Okay.
I had a look at it
Yeah.
the other day. It's
but it's dynamic
Swami.
guests. Yeah, Swami. So, they bring CEOs on from Spartan race to a Swami. So you see your global diversity. And with that being said, you get to learn from so many different levels.
Yeah, so guys, check them out, www.populis.com.au, and also the Leadership Show, which is pretty much, I reckon the best way to do it is YouTube, because there's some great videos on there. But they're also on iTunes and SoundCloud, so check them out, guys.
Excellent, excellent.
All right, looks like Moody's just walked in, so here's Moodi Dennaoui.
It makes me wanna creep.
I got something for your mind, your body, and your soul. I got something for your mind, your body, and your soul.
The Vision Board Podcast, hosted by Jonny and Tristan Cannell.
Our special guest today is Moodi Dennaoui. He's the diet doctor. He's got a Master of Research from the University of Sydney with various qualifications from the University of Sydney, covering everything from nuclear medicine, mathematics, education, psychology, and nutrition. He's the founder of Moody's, co-founder of Nutrition Station. He's A-list clients from elite athletes, actors, musicians. He's been on the cover of Men's Fitness and Eat Fit magazine. Moodi, my man, what a profile. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Moodi, obviously you've had all these hats. Like, I'm doing a little bit of research. True, you used to be a teacher?
Yes, I taught mathematics for about a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how did it evolve into obviously nutrition and fitness now?
I was always doing natural bodybuilding.
Mhm.
And I found myself carrying my lunch boxes to school and trying to make the lifestyle sort of fit into the profession. And that's not what success is about. It's not what following your dream is about. It's not about, letting your dreams take a back seat. So we measure the success. Sometimes we say our success is based on our ability to pay our bills using our passions. If you go a little bit further than that, and you're able to not only pay your bills, but change the lives of others in a positive way, that's complete euphoria, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Moodi, I first heard of you without even knowing who you were. I was walking by one of the nutrition stations in the city, in the CBD, and there's a big poster on the cover. And I remember asking Tristan, who that guy was, what is Nutrition Station? This, I think, was almost a half year ago. And he told me. And then the second time, I saw you on a flyer. So I guess my question comes from, so I saw you on a flyer, a poster with Austin Trout and Costa Zoo, and these are both world champions. So then I started doing my research. Could you talk to us a little bit about how you got on that and what's going on with that?
I think the ability to mold the eating plan according to the needs of the individual is what allowed me to gain some momentum. So there is no premeditated philosophy of eating. I won't come at you with, paleo is correct or intermittent fasting is correct. All foods are good as long as they're naturally occurring. It's a matter of whatever you're trying to achieve, what your goals are, where you're trying to head, what sporting background you're from, what position you play on the field if you're an athlete, if you're a footy player, for example. And all of these variables will then dictate the way you eat. And of course, we take into account taste bud satiety. So forcing somebody to eat a certain food that they dislike, it's not the right.
That was actually a question. So I was talking to a few of my clients and a few of the online, people that follow the show, and they wanted me to ask you, especially in the fitness industry, the industry Tristan and I currently are running a business in, people were selling themselves, buy my meal plan, buy this workout program, basically this template, and then look like what I look like. You're coming from the perspective, correct me if I'm wrong, that you need to find out what works for you, whether you're male, female. So there isn't really a template that you're going to say, right?
Education is everything. How can a diet that knows nothing about you, nothing about what foods you enjoy, gives you no leverage or leeway to adapt if your day-to-day routine changes, how can that sort of a template be adapted into your... It can be adapted, but it's got no sustainability. Within 2 weeks of following the program, you'll be like, you know what, this is not worth it. And that's what that's how everything should be approached, whether it's your career, whether it's a diet. It's not trying to take what somebody else has done and make it fit. It's look at what you want and what you're good at and what you can do and what you're trying to achieve, and then finding the formula that fits for you.
Yeah. Within your client, how do you like initially screen them? Do you get them to send a food diary to you? Is that
A food diary is always a good thing, because knowing what they eat and what they have been eating for a certain period of time is good to use as a benchmark. Believe it or not, the majority of people don't eat enough.
Yeah.
So taking into consideration how they've been eating can also give you an idea of what they're capable of following. Initially, you don't want to be setting some goals that are unrealistic and then bringing down their confidence if they fail. The worst thing we can do is create a negative relationship with food, with people, and people shouldn't be beating themselves up. And the average fitness model is not what I think healthy looks like. Some people are naturally leaner than others.
Yeah.
I have a hard time.
Yourself, you've done modelling, getting down to those low body fat percentages.
What I find difficult is, and that'll be different for everybody again. What I find difficult is putting on weight.
Yeah.
The next person might find it very easy to pack on muscle mass, but super hard to get lean. We're not blessed with everything.
And what, in your opinion, with your studies and your experience, what's the catalyst for that? Do you feel that, because I've heard some conversations bring up, depending on what region of the world you're in, your metabolism will be affected depending if you had a sporting background. Some guys could put on weight, some struggle with cutting. Have you found any type of common denominators to be able to identify these things, or are they still
These are all just variables.
Okay.
They're all just variables. Now, whether you use them as an excuse is up to the individual. Now, you can say, I come from a family that has a slow metabolism, I'm an ectomorph, I'm an endomorph, etc. But that doesn't mean that whatever you're trying to achieve is not achievable. It's all doable. You might have to work a little bit harder than the person next to you, but it's still achievable. Doesn't matter what that goal is. It might take you a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And I think the ultimate goal is to have a healthy body composition. It's not necessarily to look like, Lazar, or to look like that. Whatever they've done is amazing, but we can't look the way they look. Our muscle insertions are different.
Yeah.
You can't mold biceps like Ronnie Coleman. His muscle insertions are different to ours. Anatomically he's made up differently. Physiologically he's made up differently. Yeah. To look at somebody like that for anything more than motivation, it's not healthy.
So you can't compare. The point is, don't compare yourself, guys, to someone you see basically on a poster and expect those results. It happens a lot with clients of mine, and my background's in psychology, and I get to use that in my favor when I have these chats with them about, look, we need to find realistic goals. One of the things I always do when I meet a new client is I have them send a picture to me of somebody that they see online, of what they want to look like.
Yeah.
And with this,
and hopefully it's not a stage photo.
Man, I could go through my phone and show you guys some of the
competition photos.
Yeah, of like, I have a 19-year-old client.
Some people don't realise,
and he sends me
some of those guys are practically dying on stage.
The irony is they're standing on there and they're basically vouching for the ideal image of what healthy looks like.
But they aren't.
And have you done a show before?
I've done plenty of shows. I've won a lot of natural bodybuilding contests with the INBA.
Were you suffering on stage, like
the moment?
So, okay,
very much so. I did the few competitions that I did. I had no coaching, so it was basically tuna and rice or whatever you could afford. Even if you had a little bit of knowledge, and the knowledge that I initially acquired was not from Flex magazine or from for motivation. But it wasn't from muscular development. It was by sitting in the university library. I remember at Cumberland campus when I was doing Nuke Med. This was in 1997.
Yeah.
And I'd be sitting in the library trying to figure out what supplements could work, because I couldn't afford to buy everything and then hope for the best. You're a poor student. You're not going to be able to buy creatine, glutamine, beta-alanine and hope that they all work well. You want to know what works, because you can't afford to spend your money on something that didn't work. So if I wanted to know whether creatine worked, and creatine was quite popular in 97, it wasn't even micronized back then, I would sit in the university library and I would read published journal article after journal article on creatine. I was particularly curious about the loading phenomena that they would preach. I've got my own beliefs as to why that they even have that. But loading for creatine is nonsense. It's never been scientifically proven.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I had a few questions about creatine as well.
Yeah.
So
to piggyback before the creatine,
yeah.
I wanted to clarify. So when you were doing the competitions and you won some of them, did you do your strength and conditioning and your nutrition all on your own? Did you? You said you did it without a coach.
I did it without a coach. The nutritional guidance was basically through trial and error, through reading, through research. The training was through watching videos. I had a few training partners over time that were always older than me. I was quite strong for my size, so I would always train with a bigger training partner. I always looked to push you, and I always look for the older training partner because if you're a day older than me, you're a year wiser than me. That's what my mother used to say. If somebody's a day older than you, then respect them as if they're a year older than you. And with age usually comes wisdom.
Yeah.
And if my training partner is older than me, then they would have something positive to contribute. So that's what I would look for.
How long would your prep usually be?
I was blessed in that department. See, I wasn't able to gain muscle, but I was able to get lean really quickly. The average, because I'd stay lean all year round,
Yeah.
I won I think I remember the Sydney Open and overall, and there was no weight divisions back then.
So it's
INBA
all
had
full
no
weight.
weight division, no height division, so I was always the shortest and lightest on stage. That was going to be a given. But I remember when I won that show I think it was in 2000, 2001. There were no weight divisions, no height categories. I think I was sitting at about 68, 69 kilos.
Wow.
Second place was,
What was your walking weight?
I'd probably walk around at about 72, 73. So within 10 days I'd be ready.
Yeah.
10
That's
days was the average
impressive.
prep. And the person that I would compete with, there was a gentleman that used to train at my gym, and we'd always go head to head in comp quite often. He'd take months off work, and I'd see what he'd go through, 16, 20 weeks of extreme dieting, and then balloon back up. And I never believed in doing that in the off season, and then trying to lose the weight. Anything more than a 5 kilo fluctuation, whether it be an appreciation of weight or a depreciation of weight, is not healthy for your organs.
Did you find because part of getting on stage and part of competing, a big aspect of that is the posing, and then to master the posing. Now this is coming from perspective. I've never competed. I've never been on stage. Is what I've read and some of my friends have. I've just noticed their behaviors because it's something I pay attention to.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, with the posing and the practicing of like finding that perfect, unique pose, did you find that there was starting to become maybe what's the danger basically of like developing a dysmorphia complex? I guess what I'm
Almost
asking.
everybody that competes, and
Is it-
not many
Do you
people.
Do you think
would
it's
be,
because of the mirror?
I think so.
Yeah.
Not many people would be vocal about this subject because it's a sensitive topic, but I think most of us that have stepped on stage have had some sort of body dysmorphia.
And it could work both ways, correct? Like it could look, say, a guy like yourself who's in good shape. Guys, if you're listening, Moody's jacked. He's an athlete. He's an athlete. But so a guy like Moodi could look in the mirror and he could think that he's small, but also you could look in the mirror and you could think that you're big, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
So you can look in the mirror and say, you see yourself as being very small, and that's megarexia,
Okay.
which is the opposite of anorexia. So no matter how big you get, it's never big enough.
Never good enough.
I did get caught up in that when I was just doing bodybuilding. When I transitioned into a more functional sport like jiu-jitsu,
Yep.
I realised that being the heavier guy wasn't necessarily better.
It's a small man's sport, isn't it? That's what
Exactly,
kind of Royce said
exactly.
to us
So
a little
you
bit, yeah.
gain 2 kilos and you find that your positioning on the floor when you're in guard, when you're on your back, it's just you're not as agile, and that makes me uncomfortable.
Have you heard the story about where Helio learned jiu-jitsu from? The Gracie family? So, from
Japan.
Yeah.
From Japan, yeah.
From-
it originated in the 20s.
It was a
15.
Yeah, one of the I think Gracie's great-grandfather did a favor for Japan royalty in Brazil, and as the gift, the Japanese royalty taught I think it was Helio Gracie, I could be wrong on that, jiu-jitsu, but at the time Helio was a small guy and he couldn't do a lot of the moves. He was too small to do some of the submissions, so he created one that best suited himself.
Exactly.
And then that's where Cesar Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu originated from.
It's something crazy with Hoist. Like Shamrock would have outweighed him by 20 kilos. At least.
Every athlete. There was no weight, and that's there was no weight divisions. Like bodybuilding back in the day. It
was the Wild West.
There was no weight divisions.
Really no rules. You were allowed
no
to knee
rules.
to the head.
Hoist, like when we
Pull
met him,
hair.
Pull
like,
hair, eye gouge.
He's probably the same weight as you.
Yeah, but a lot taller.
But obviously he's 6'2" ish,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
I was impressed. We chatted with Hoist a couple weeks ago. I was impressed with how tall he was.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when he fought Severn, I think it was in '97. I was 15 watching that fight. Severn was a gold medal Olympian, and I think in America, I think he was about 250 pounds. He was a beast. His nickname was the Beast.
Yeah.
And it went like 40 some. I think that fight went like 40 plus minutes. Because
Yeah.
there were, I think, 2 10-minute rounds, and if nobody submitted, it just went on. So
It went on.
Yeah.
Meta Morris has come up with something like that. There's a new jiu-jitsu breed of tournament that's out now called
Is that
Meta
Eddie
Morris.
Bravo's, or is that?
I think it's Holf Gracie's.
Okay.
And it's amazing. It's only one round. It's 20 minutes.
Wow.
And if you don't get, it's that submission only.
Yeah.
So no points.
There's one coming up tomorrow in England, Polaris. And
Yeah,
Jake
yeah.
Shields
Jake
is fighting
Shields,
AJ Azarev, and then Gary Tunin.
Yeah,
who's
yeah,
a BJJ
So these
animal.
These
Yeah,
submission only matches.
Tunan's
So if
fighting-
it goes 20 minutes, so is it?
It's a
called
draw.
off?
It's called
It's
a
a
draw.
draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Tunan's fighting Husmar Paharis,
Oh,
who's
wow.
been banned from he's been banned from the UFC, banned from World Series of Fighting for holding submissions too long.
Is that the guy who keeps breaking
Best
everyone's-
footlock.
Yeah. Dude,
Best footlock in the game.
And it's brutal because he's so talented. But
Yeah.
what he did to Jake, and I forgot who he fought before Jake, he just wouldn't let go of that ankle, and you could really do damage to that knee.
Yeah, usually by the time you tap, and that's why a lot of the submissions are being taken out of the sport, like the bicep crush, the calf crush. If by the time you tap, the damage is done,
Yeah.
and not only have you crushed the bicep, in many cases the muscle is actually detached from the bone. It's got to be stapled back on. So the time the athlete is out of action, it's not a very good investment for the promoter.
Could you talk to him? We heard Eddie Bravo's talking about because Bravo is I think he's a Machado disciple from the Caesar
Yeah,
Gracie lineage.
yeah.
But and Eddie Bravo, guys, if you're listening, he was, I think, the first American to ever submit a Gracie. I think in 2007 he submitted was it Hickson, one of the Gracies.
No, not Hickson's never.
He never
been
did
beaten.
it. It was never been beaten.
Hickson's
No,
the
Hickson
other one.
was the older brother.
Yeah, Hickson is Cron's dad.
Yeah. Okay. But that story about Bravo creating his own form of jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
he was talking about bicep crushes, and I had never heard of that.
Yeah.
So could you explain that a little to me?
The bicep crush, or what you basically do, the way I set up, there's several ways of, like with every submission for the bicep crush. But what I like to do to set up the bicep crush is to, when you have somebody in half guard, you sort of give them leverage to move into side control. While you've got one arm trapped, and while you've got one arm trapped, you've got the shin embedded into the bicep. So as they come to pass into side control, you scoop the thigh,
Yep.
you sweep, and then as you sweep, you land on top of your opponent with your shin on their bicep. So and then obviously you drop your weight, sprawl back a little bit,
Hear 'em yell.
And
yeah.
then hear 'em
And
yell.
if you've got, see, that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. It teaches you empathy, and that's why I got my son into BJJ.
Where are you
very
training
early.
at?
It was originally called it was High and Gracie.
Yep.
And it's now been rebranded as My BJJ in Camperdown.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. And you said your
Yeah.
son's on it now. It's
My
actually
son's
interesting.
yeah,
Kelly
deep into
Slater's been very vocal. We're speaking to John Wayne Parr as well. And
Yeah.
he's got his kids into combat.
Mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they think, the discipline.
It teaches the empathy, because at the end of the day, if you're rolling with somebody from your team and you get them in a bicep crush or in a foot lock or anything like that, you want to ease that submission in and give your opponent and your teammate some time to tap, because you want them to be back tomorrow so you can train together.
They've got life.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you don't want to take their arms off. So, and you know what it feels like, because any submission that you've pulled off, I guarantee you've been submitted that way before you've been able to pull it off.
And karma works well.
Yeah, and you want
you
to be able to empathise with the person you're rolling with,
Yeah.
because you all want to come back tomorrow and do what you love most, and that's roll. So
Do you feel closer to your teammates or the guys that you roll with
Yeah.
compared to other sports that you
yeah,
play
yeah,
with?
oh, most definitely,
Yeah.
most definitely.
And I went to a BJJ gym for 2 weeks in my mid-20s. I was living in Long Beach, California, and it was Hoist's gym called Neutral Grounds. And I come from a boxing background, and I went for 2 weeks, and just being touched, like that intimacy of grappling,
Yeah.
it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I'd much rather strike or keep a distance. But what I have learned from it, a lot of the guys I listen to and read about, they talk about BJJ as being, because the only way to evolve in life is to put yourself in vulnerable situations and places of adversity. And like each practice while you're rolling, doing jiu-jitsu, I'm sure you're faced with adversity and learning how to get out of it, learning how to basically evolve the next time if you get submitted on this move, next time to grow.
Chess with the human body, that's what it is. So sometimes you get an experienced jiu-jitsu athlete, set up a submission using 4 or 5 different baits. And sometimes you have to sometimes you have to like I'll land a submission sometimes and I'll have to ask my coach, it's great that I got that submission. Can you tell me how I got there? Because you're not, you're so in tune, after a certain number of years, you're so in tune with your body that you end up pulling off submissions without really giving it much thought. So it almost becomes embedded in your subconscious.
How long have you been doing it?
About a decade.
What color is your belt?
3rd degree purple.
3rd degree purple?
Yeah.
Through
Mario, who's a black belt under Hein Gracie.
Okay.
So I've spent some time in the US training at Henzo's gym with John Dennaoui, George St. Pierre's coach.
Yep.
He's an absolute
Great
phenom.
experience.
And I've seen him manhandle some world champions without breaking a sweat, but he just doesn't believe in competing himself. I've spent some time in Sao Paulo, Brazil, training at Hein's gym after he passed.
Yeah.
Amazing
Are you a
culture.
UFC guy as well?
Yeah, love
You
the
can't-
UFC.
yeah, you
Who's
can-
your
Love
guy?
the UFC.
Who's your guy?
I mean, I was back in Diaz all the way.
Yeah, me
But
too.
out of respect for the, out of
High
respect,
five on it.
I was at his house and he actually did better.
out of respect for for his coach,
I
man.
took Misha too, but
Yeah.
not only in the Diaz fight. Sorry guys to drive this point to the ground because
Connor's a great athlete,
He
but I
is.
back Diaz.
What are you feeling at 155?
I called the submission too. I said the second round he's gonna tap.
Submit him, he'll submit.
Yeah.
If it goes the distance, Connor will win.
are
But
you
it's
talking the rematch?
being able to go the distance. Yeah, he's rematching.
Being someone
UFC
that's
200.
At 170 though. That's
it's
Con.
at 155.
No, it's Connor's request. Connor won't. Connor Diaz are
Same
fighting
weight.
same weight.
Is it?
Yeah.
But
'cause
then again, having been walked from a nutritional perspective,
Yeah.
from a health perspective, if he's been walking around at that weight for a little bit longer, his cardiovascular performance and his muscle endurance will be better than what it was the first time. So he will be more dangerous.
I think he'll be smarter too.
Yeah.
Sorry
Because
about
to do it in a fortnight, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Do you think that was Connor's natural walking weight, or did he put on size between those fights?
I think he intentionally put on some size.
I
I don't
was-
think everybody walks around eating 5 steaks a day.
Well,
Yeah.
I heard he walks around at close to 175. That's why when he was making weight at 145, it was really impressive. He was cutting 30 pounds because it's not like something. The thing that about it is, it's not like Connor's a natural 145er, and it's not like Nate's a natural 170er. Nate's a natural 155er, and Connor's a natural 155er, and they just met at 170. And I think it's interesting that kind of the excuses people are making for that loss.
Yeah.
It kind of shows you, like, for me, you mentioned Tall Poppy before we started. I don't think we were on the air yet. But a guy like Nate, man, he's been in the game. I've been watching him since.
He's always been that way.
He's always been that way, man.
He's done that flamboyant
Yeah.
bullshit.
You know what? I
since
just
day one.
realised too, because I went to UFC in Las Vegas.
Edgar
in
Maynard,
2011. It was
Yeah.
Edgar Maynard, and we went from the start to the finish. I didn't know who Nate Diaz was. He was on the card.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe, like, this card was stacked.
Yeah.
Looking
Yeah.
back at this card, like,
Yeah.
I was only taking real good interest in the 3 main events. Before I had a real like what I do now following,
Yeah.
the guys that were on this undercard, looking back 4 years,
Yeah.
all the guys that were on the main event.
Rory was on the undercard.
Yeah, Nate's not putting on a show though when he talks like
He's
that.
a fighter.
He's not. He's street. But his philosophy is, you're there to take food off my table.
Yeah.
We're there to fight. So
That's dangerous.
if we're friends and we're all buddy, that might affect the way I fight. And I don't want to have, I don't want to take that risk. I don't want to take that chance. We'll shake hands after it's said and done. But I'm not mouthing off to build up momentum for the fight like Chael Sonnen would, for example. And he's great at doing that. But that's him being him.
That's a good
That's
one,
just-
because
that's
he's just been his personality. He
that's just
doesn't
him.
care about the sponsors.
Yeah, no. He
wants
could not
to
care less.
just- Yeah.
If it was up to him, he wouldn't even do the press tour.
I think it's really fascinating too that with a figure like Connor who's super charismatic, he's really brought a lot new fans to the UFC and mixed martial arts. So you get a lot of guys and girls who aren't really aware of like the sport itself. They're just there for Connor.
Yeah.
And they're not aware of the Diaz brothers, being late teens, being, under the Gracie tutelage. Nick fighting in Japan as a 19-year-old. Winning these huge tournaments in what were they called in like the early 2000s?
Did you see Nick fight at 16 years of age? I think
The
it was
grown man.
Pancrase.
No,
It was a Pancrase tournament.
That's the one. He had the
Yeah.
blonde.
Yeah.
I just saw. I posted that video on my website, and he was exchanging. He was fighting the Japanese fighter. And that style, it said, I think the Diaz brothers, if you guys follow them online, they always post old school Nate fights. That's what I'm talking about. And there's like 80,000 people in this arena, and you have this young kid from Stockton, California, so talented, just grew up on, fighting. And
If the sport didn't exist, he'd be fighting in the street.
that's what did Jake Shields tell us about?
He'd be fighting anyway. That's just what he does. It's what you know. Everyone has a different way of expressing themselves, and that's how they express themselves.
And you know what? What's Dana White say about it? He said there's two things since we've evolved as humans that humans have always done and will always do, and that's fight and have sex.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And that's
the absolute
It's the two
truth.
most instinctual things to our spirit and our animal.
Yeah.
And they do it really well. I don't know about the sex part, about the fighting. The Diaz boys got it
They
on lock.
They got it down.
Yeah,
pat.
they do,
It
don't
doesn't
they?
matter who you are, whether you're rich or you're poor.
And everybody likes to see a fight. Like before UFC, I was a Pride junkie.
Me too. Kazushi Sakuraba was my guy.
Yeah, I like see Shogun in Pride. It was just
He was an animal. There was no testing. There were no.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Shogun.
50,000 people. In the
Vanderlei
auditorium.
Silva. Those Silva fights, man. The axe murder. He's winning those fights before.
I watched the documentary just on his stare down.
Yeah.
How long did he go
That's
for?
heavy.
Dude, it's like he won the fight and
He's
he had
a
this
scary man. I've met Vanderlei.
Yeah.
I've met Vanderlei. He's a scary. His head is
massive.
Like,
Yeah,
I would not even try and knock him out.
Yeah,
He's a big guy.
He's
Not 5'9".
He's not the biggest guy, but he's got a mug on him. Yeah.
yeah. We were chatting. One of the things I asked Hoist was back to the early UFC days about that walk-in. I was
Yeah.
like, was this something that the Gracies? Was this a tradition you guys did?
The train.
And he said no. They came up with it like the night before. Let's
Yeah.
all walk in like that. And that was one of the things when I was a kid that I remembered. I was like, man, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So we did that on the basketball court, like in high school.
Yeah.
We'd come out of the locker room like
The
that.
train, the Gracie train.
Yeah, man. And then he'd win it, and then also, guys, you'd have to win 5 fights in one night to win the whole tournament.
Yeah, that's
Always.
Pride, and
Yeah.
that's the original
Yeah.
UFC.
That's
the original
another thing.
structure.
Jesus, talk about that endurance.
You got to fight, and then you got to fight again.
Yeah, I think the only one Hoist didn't win was because of exhaustion. I think he won 1, 2,
Yeah,
and 4.
he endured too much damage.
Yeah, but man,
Too much
those-
damage. They couldn't come back out. The doctors wouldn't let him come out to fight again.
have
I
you
like
ever
that second
competed?
one, yeah.
I competed. I competed once in Sao Paulo. I was there just to
Representing
watch.
Australia?
I was there just to watch. I went there for a holiday,
Too
a
much
bit of
for
a
you.
training camp. I was still fresh into jiu-jitsu, and the Brazilian culture, fighting is like us playing cricket in the backyard.
Yeah.
So I'm at this tournament, and I'm just kicking back as a spectator, and my coach goes, "Oh, you're going to fight next?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll get you some acai." There was acai bowls from the trucks outside. We've got ice cream trucks.
Yeah.
They got acai trucks. So
Antioxidants.
the
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu
yeah,
competitions. And he goes, "I'll get you some acai, give you some energy, and go fight." I'm like, "I'm wearing jeans, dude. Like, how am I going to fight?" He said, "That's all right. You borrow his gi, and you go and you fight." I said, "I'm a white belt, and this is a blue belt plus tournament. You can't compete. There's no white belt competitions in Brazil."
Yeah.
And I think it was in-house inside the club. And he said, "That's okay, you borrow his blue belt." I'm like, "Really? You got an answer for everything?"
Yeah.
I thought he was pulling my leg, but I went and looked at the notice board and I was fighting.
Shit.
I remember I got caught in a triangle in the last probably 30 seconds. Yeah, but it was a good experience.
But you
What
got
was
chucked
that
Good
in the
like?
experience. Everyone's yelling at you in
That's how you
Portuguese.
learn.
Yeah.
You get chucked in the deep end.
Because
and
that's
you have to-
okay,
That's the
American-
deep. I don't even know if that's the deep end. That's like abandoned in the
Yeah.
middle of like the open
Yeah.
desert.
Yeah.
There's no deep end.
So
There.
casual. Too,
How old
about
were
it.
you?
This was going back about 10 years.
Okay. What do
I
you feel?
just started. It's like go in there, you go in there, you have some fun, and
Yeah.
very late.
Do you still
casual
talk to the
Brazilian.
coach?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a moment
I'm
that-
still with the same coach.
That's
That's cool,
awesome.
man.
Yeah.
That's a cool
Yeah.
story.
He's the only black belt in Australia under Hyan Gracie.
Hi.
Yeah, Henzo's brother, little brother.
Okay. Now Henzo's the one who had those pride fights with. He was in the pride, right? He
Yeah,
fought
yeah.
Sakuraba.
Sakuraba.
Had his arm, and then Hines jumped in the. I think Hines the one,
Hyan's the original pit bull.
and he jumped in the ring after
Yeah.
Sakuraba hurt his arm.
Yeah, he's insane.
he was like total opposite energy of Hoist. I remember Hoist was very stoic, and Hines was just a loose cannon.
Yeah, Hyan,
Yeah.
Hyan died undefeated.
He was 2007, wasn't it?
Died undefeated. I remember we weren't allowed to train for a good week when he passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he died at 33.
He was
Very
young.
Yeah.
We were talking about the tutelage of the Gracie family, and you'd be hard pressed to find any family in any sport across the world with that type of like
Influence.
man, the most important family in mixed martial arts history. There'd
Yeah.
be no like imagine the UFC without BJJ.
It would not exist.
It
yeah.
wouldn't. It
But look what it did for fighting in general. You've got these fighters like the Robert Whitakers that are coming through, and they're not known for It's not a boxer that adapted for MMA, or it's not a wrestler that learnt how to do
They're all
how
around.
to do some jiu-jitsu and how to strike. These guys are raised knowing how to do it all.
Like Roy McDonald.
Roy McDonald.
Hybrids. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. And I think, are they doing that? I've never been to the gym up here in Sydney, the UFC gym, but I know that there are gyms popping up locally that are just teaching mixed martial arts.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather than like a specific discipline. Like
That's why I had a lot of respect for the GSP's training philosophy. He would train with the best of the best
Wherever in the
for
world.
every
Freddie
aspect.
Roach was his boxing
for
coach.
every demographic. He looked at
Yeah.
who was the best at striking, who was the best at Muay Thai, and he'd fly them over and he'd spend his money and invest. And he'd invest purely in himself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Well, at the end of the day, he was 8 out of 10 at each discipline, wasn't
Yeah, a large amount of his funds would go back into his prep for the next fight.
Yeah.
And that's what I respect a lot about him. That's probably that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that fighters make. They don't reinvest
In themselves.
enough.
Yeah.
Enough.
Well, actually, when I was speaking to Anthony Mundine a few weeks ago, I said to him, because I thought that he boxed a lot better when Roy Jones Senior was in his corner.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a
Yeah,
doubt.
I
I don't think he would have won that fight without him.
I go, where's Roy, mate? Because I think that when Roy was in your corner for those 2 or 3 fights,
Yeah.
you were actually at your best.
Oh,
And he
without a
goes,
doubt.
Obviously now he's had his hip surgery,
Yeah.
and he was actually saying that I might bring Roy back because obviously the next fight's probably going to be Danny Green. And
Yeah,
let's be honest,
yeah,
Danny
yeah.
Green's going to try and monster him.
Yeah.
And, at 40 years of age,
His hip is in very, very bad shape.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what Ben was saying as well. And
Yeah.
obviously all the reports.
If
coming
he
through as well.
continued to invest in Roy Jones Senior, I truly believe that Chock would have been fighting, the Pacquiaos and the Floyds.
Definitely,
Yeah,
and
without a
his style
doubt. He's a
definitely
freak. He's a
changed.
freak athlete. No matter what sport he would have picked, he would have been professional at it.
Definitely. Can we talk about a little bit of the work that you've done with Anthony?
With Chock, it was predominantly strength and conditioning and nutrition in the beginning, and then it became more nutrition and not so much strength and conditioning.
Yeah, because he doesn't really like the weights, does he?
He didn't mind it, but the rest of the Mundine team didn't believe too much in strength and conditioning, even if it was just calisthenics.
Yeah.
Using your own body weight. But I remember working on his core for the fight in Vegas when we were at the Palms. He fought Bronco McCart.
Yeah.
He hadn't knocked out anyone in a while, and he walked in. I think in the 5th round he knocked him out because his punching power had deteriorated because of his hip.
Yeah.
The power comes from the floor up.
When he first said, like obviously to you, that he wanted to drop down in weight, obviously he was a super middleweight. He came,
Yeah.
real 86 kilos, super middleweight 76 kilos.
Yeah.
He went middleweight 72 kilos, junior middleweight 69.
Yeah.
Did you think it was going to be possible?
Yeah. Or you see, from a science perspective, all you do is you take a DEXA scan, look at the muscle to fat ratio, and see if it's physiologically possible and whether it's going to be taxing and detrimental to the athlete. Are they going to? Yes, they're able to drop the weight, but is it going to be at a cost to their power, at a cost to their speed, at a cost to their muscle endurance and cardiovascular endurance? And if you make the correct assessment, you can gauge where a fighter can possibly fight at. And if the opportunity presents itself for a world title at 69, and you can do it healthy with the right guidance, then why not?
Have you done much studies on what the cut does? Because in terms of you have guys who are cutting a lot of weight, have you read anything about after their career, long-term issues with the
Yeah,
thyroid?
man, I've seen. Have you seen photos of like people like Prince and Nassim Hamid and
What they look like now?
Yeah, man.
Princeton seems massive, he's about 90
Yeah,
kilos.
he's heavier than 90 kilos. This guy fought at featherweight too.
Yeah, he was a
5'3"
legend,
yeah.
the
He
Prince.
fought at 57.2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's ballooned. I think he's well over 100 kilos.
I saw a photo of him the other day, he was looking massive.
Now is that lifestyle? That's lifestyle factor.
It's basically fighting at a weight that's not commensurate with your height and your skeletal structure, and then because your coach has told you, we want you to fight at 69 kilos, and there's a fight and there's a title at 69, for example, and this individual could be naturally walking around at 85 kilos, and that's not 85 kilos splurging, 85 kilos natural, just eating like a normal human being. Your receptors are going to be so sensitive to those excess calories coming in afterwards, and so sensitive to whatever foods you did cut out, that as soon as you do start consuming them again, a massive amount of weight is going to come onto your frame.
Can you take us through the process of someone like a fighter cutting weight? Do you get them to get very close to the actual weigh-in date?
Fight that, yeah. I get them to come in close. It's funny how a lot of the conversation about fighters prepping for a fight, it's almost like talking about the Biggest Loser, because it's all about weight. You ask a fighter how they're doing for their prep.
What their skill set, yeah.
How's your prep going? And they'll be like, oh, it's pretty good. I got 5 kilos to go. I'm like, what about the actual sport?
That's
what about
interesting.
your opponent?
Yeah.
You know, are you deconstructing your opponent? Are you doing your homework?
Yeah, a lot of the guys,
because that's where your effort and energy should be spent.
Yeah.
But they're too focused on the weight cut.
a lot of guys talk about the fight before the fight. There's 2 fights. The first fight's the scale.
The scale,
and after
yeah.
they win that one,
And
then
if you spend your money on a nutritionist or a strength and conditioning coach, those are responsibilities that should be, you know, palmed off to that person, and that's one less thing you should have to worry about. You should be worrying about the fight that's going to come up. But the general approach that I take is I get them to about 2 or 3 kilos from striking distance, but I encourage you to walk around at 5 to 6 kilos away from fight weight anyway. Anything more than 5 kilos is going to affect you. You're going to be
Your
fighting.
performance, you mean?
Yeah, it's going to affect your performance. You're going to be sparring at 100% and then fighting at 70, as we've seen so many people do.
have you seen Connor on the scales at 145? Like when he's
Yeah.
making that weight,
Yeah, yeah.
it looks, it
Looks wrong.
Yeah, it looks wrong. That's a perfect word for
Yeah,
it.
it looks wrong. I get them to about 2 or 3 kilos striking distance and then use the rest through water manipulation. Because if you dehydrate for X amount of hours and you've got a 24-hour window like a professional boxer does, with amateurs you can't do this, you've got plenty of time to rehydrate. But if that weight coming off is muscle and it's not just water weight,
Yep.
that 24-hour window is just not enough.
Wow. And then
It's
once,
nowhere near enough time.
once they make weight, what's the first thing you make them hit?
I don't let them start consuming copious amounts of food straight away because the digestive system is not quite ready for it.
Yeah.
And the whole key to being well nourished is having a healthy gut. Because it does not matter how much food you eat, if your gut is not healthy,
Yep.
then your nutrient absorption is just going to be shit. So you want to basically prime the stomach for what it's about to endure, and that's a slow and steady intake of fats, carbs, and protein.
Is there any staples that you use, like a salmon or a chicken?
I tend to stay away from coloured meat on the day of the fight.
Yep.
Only because takes a little bit longer to digest and break down and be used as energy. But the night before, definitely a nice big steak, plenty of B vitamins, creatine, some sweet potato, and some fats to slow down the release of the glycogen that's into the blood.
Yeah, definitely. We just mentioned creatine. We mentioned it earlier in the show as well.
Yeah.
I had a few clients that actually wanted me to ask you just about what your actual opinion was in terms of...
Creatine's great for strength.
Yeah.
Great for strength, great for recovery. I prefer it post as opposed to using it before training.
Do you mix it with whey protein?
I mix my creatine with the whey protein and some carbohydrates.
Yep.
Yeah, so I find that nutrient absorption and delivery requires a certain amount of macros from other families to be involved in the process. So if you've got, say, a protein shake that's 60-40 carbs to protein,
Yep.
and you've got some creatine in there and some beta-alanine and some glutamine, it's the ideal post-workout shake. Something like that will definitely give you at least an hour before you get some food in.
Is that predominantly the post-workout nutrition that you kind of go for?
Pretty
Shakes?
much, yeah, pretty much.
And then how long after that would you have your next meal?
See, that I won't consider as a meal. It's basically just buying you time.
Yep.
It's buying you anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes. And you do want the shake for a reason. Not that shakes are better than food. Shakes are still a supplement. So they're there as a plan B. But when you've got that window of opportunity for nutrient uptake, you do want to take in a fast and easy to digest form of protein, carbohydrates, and other micronutrients as well.
Is there such thing as this? I've read a couple different opinions and theories. Window of after we train to maximize the protein.
Without a doubt, like you've got these if it fits your macros based diets and everything. I think they're okay if it's the only thing you're looking for is aesthetics. But if you're looking for the holistic health and well-being and performance, I don't think if it fits your macros is an ideal philosophy. If I will follow that philosophy on a cheat day. Do you
But
know
not-
what I mean?
but
not as a lifestyle, because trying to tell me that your body does not know whether your carbs are coming from sweet potato or fruit or Pop Tarts is a bit far fetched.
I feel that too.
Sorry.
Yeah, I feel that with also the online community. I feel education should be everyone in this room's number one priority in regards to
And health.
health.
Don't just look at the way you look.
Yeah.
If I gave you a Ferrari right now, and I
How
gave
would
you
I treat it?
and I gave you a 6-pack,
Yeah.
and I gave you all the money in the world, but I told you you're going to have to starve for it, you're not going to be a happy man.
No, definitely not.
Do you know? It's
Like,
it's
how
about,
do you
And then
feel?
if you've got a Ferrari, would you fuel it with the good petrol or the
exactly?
shit
It's
petrol?
just you
Right.
got the way just gauge the way you feel when you eat good food.
When did this even become a market? Like, guys, what we're talking about, if you go on Instagram,
I
you'll
think
see.
it's an excuse, to be honest with you. I think it's just an excuse for people who just don't have the discipline.
Like, I don't want to eat donuts, because I know, like, the way my body feels is directly related what's going into my body, and call that bro science, call that I'm not a nutritionist, but I know how I feel, and you have a lot of these people, these fitness experts who are selling, oh, you could eat whatever you want as long as it fits your
macros.
fits your macros,
Yeah,
and guys,
it's
if you're not aware what we're talking about, macros are the main categories.
Proteins, carbs, and fats. So, like, I remember I was watching an interview over a meal with Phil Heath. I think it's only a year old, and they asked him the same question: "What do you think about if it fits your macros?" He said, "What's that?
Yeah.
I've never heard of it."
Interesting.
And I don't know any elite athlete that follows that eating philosophy.
right.
You're talking about the average Instagram model, maybe.
They're
And
targeting.
if you're only looking for aesthetics, if you only care about the way you look and you don't care about how you're feeling upstairs, how you're cognitively performing, how happy you are, and how the rest of your body is functioning, then yes, go for it. Eat Pop-Tarts to replace your sweet potatoes. That's your prerogative. But to tell me that there is no difference, your body knows the difference. Your body knows how much food you're eating. Your body knows the type of food that you're eating, and then your brain will tell you what enzymes to release to break those foods down.
Exactly
So,
right.
how-
Well, if you had a
we're
choice
not
between a
desi-
Big Mac and having a nutritious meal, I can't believe you would pick a Big Mac.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
Unless your brain, like Moodi just said, unless you're not functioning
See, now,
correctly.
there's a time,
cognitive,
exactly.
you know?
There's a time and place for these foods because, unfortunately, in a developed society, we've been exposed to them. So to pretend that they don't exist is not what I'm trying to preach. I'm not trying to say that I eat clean 99% of the time or 100% of the time. That's bullshit.
It's tough.
You know, I like chocolate just like the next person.
Yeah.
But there's a time and a place for everything, and you've got to be real. Like, you cannot tell me that having ice cream is the same as having fruit or some pineapple or papaya post-workout, because it's not just macros. It may fit your macros, but what about the micronutrients that are responsible for the way we function?
yeah, exactly.
The vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and phytonutrients that are responsible for the way our cells communicate with one another. This is what matters. It's not just protein, carbs, and fats. Even within fats, there are different types of fats.
Yeah.
There's saturated and there's unsaturated. And even within saturated, there are different
Monounsaturated,
types of saturated.
polyunsaturated. I think it's also important too, just an underlying factor that a lot of these, if it fits your macros, aren't talking about, is the psychological connection between knowing that you ate a healthy meal and knowing that the meal that you just chose to eat isn't really healthy, synthetically made. So I wanted to ask you, Moodi, a little bit about, you talked about performance and running the body to its maximum capabilities. Could you talk about some of the side projects you're into? That poster I mentioned earlier, I think that was one of your, brainchild of yours, Nutrition Station, and then is this kind of like a passion of yours to educate people on healthy meals, or do you enjoy cooking? Could you talk a little bit about that
I
inspiration?
enjoy eating far more than cooking, but it's and that's why I think
Great
I've got the
answer.
cafes, because I can get someone doing that for me. I'm doing a little bit of cooking for a potential TV pilot in the next few days at my cafe at Moody's. But the reason for that is something that we touched base on earlier about success. Like, success is it's not measured, for me, it's not measured by the dollar value. Yes, you want to be able to pay your bills using your passion, but if you can genuinely improve the way people live on a day-to-day basis, then that's the ultimate feeling.
Did you
That's
write the
beyond,
menus?
That's beyond success. I wrote the menus. I wrote everything to do with those
If we were
companies.
like
Even the school seminars. These schools that I do seminars for, I've got a school seminar called Food for Thought. I'm doing one on Monday at MLC girls' private school. You guys are welcome to
Awesome.
come in. And
What
have a
time is
listen.
that?
That's at, I think, at 10 a.m. on Monday, and you know the funding is there for it, but you know taking money from them doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And
It's something
you
you're
know,
giving back, right?
you just got to give back if you've been blessed with something, and I think the education background helped a lot. Being able to communicate about nutrition is a very difficult thing to do, in layman's terms. So it's if you can say a profound thing in a simple way, then you're onto something, because nutrition is by no means simple. It is simple, but we've made it complex.
We have.
We've made it very complex. So nutrition station itself, that was an avenue with a few other people that were involved, that I took just so I can basically give people a healthy option, that they didn't have to wait half an hour for it, like you would at the average restaurant. You can go in there within 7-8 minutes. You'd have a nutritious meal that would be the equivalent of something you would cook at home, but with a little bit more flavour.
And now with Moody's,
With Moody's, it's a little bit more premium. You know, with business, you don't always see eye to eye with people, and especially if the people that you're involved with are not as passionate about the industry as you are.
Yeah.
Now, if your objective is health, nutrition, well-being, and you don't want to compromise on your integrity, then you have to do what feels right. Now, there are 33 nutrition station stores. However, I feel that I could do a little bit better, you know, as a service to the customer.
And you have full control, right?
I got full control. So by making sure that everything is hormone free, by making sure that certain foods are organic where possible. It's very hard to source organic produce for the masses, and at the end of the day, it is a business. So the people invested still have to be able to make a dollar. But if you can make it as clean as possible, but super fucking tasty. So
Where can we find those Moody's?
the first one is opened up in Bankstown. We should be open up in the eastern suburbs very soon. Hopefully, we should have
Is it near the shopping centre? Or?
right next to the shopping centre where Paul Keating Park is.
Yep.
I think it's adjacent to the library there, and we should have one soon in either Coogee or Bondi Beach.
Cool.
Castle Hill, hopefully soon. But they will be. It is a franchise, so they will be popping up all over Sydney. And I'm doing a lot of travelling because there's a lot of interest in it overseas. I'm in Dubai next week.
Wow.
Because there's interest there in the cafe, and I'll be going to Southeast Asia from there.
What's the credo of the restaurant? What's the catch line? Like, what's the pitch line for the restaurant's idea?
Exactly the hashtag I use: count nutrients, not calories.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Dubai
Yeah.
will be actually a great spot. I went there a couple of years ago, and they've got a lot of money over there, and they're trying to start evolving in that health.
Yeah,
space.
and they're one of the fattest countries in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I actually went to Dubai Mall, and their food court is just curries and just all.
Have you been?
They love
Have you been to
to-
America?
Wow.
They love to indulge.
Yeah,
See,
they do.
the average person, the average Dubai citizen will finish work and then, go take the family to the local sweet shop, and have coffee and cakes, and and they're not very active. The gym scene has grown exponentially, but it's grown after the damage has been done. So, and they can afford to indulge, and that's resulted in an overweight population.
We ask a lot of our guests this question, Moody, but what do you see? What is your plan? What's your vision in regards to all the things you're doing right now and the opportunity that you're setting yourself up with?
The ultimate goal, from the food perspective, it's to have healthy food accessible to everyone at affordable prices. That's from a business perspective. From a giving back point of view, I want to do as many of these seminars as possible. Ideally, what we're working on is trying to get a nutrition component embedded into the curriculum. Because I think children should grow up.
Yeah,
Children should grow up. I want my son growing up knowing what a protein and a carbohydrate is and the difference between them.
I think it starts with the parents, like educating the parents,
Yeah.
and then instilling it into their children.
It's sad. Like I've consulted elite athletes, and these people are phenomenal at what they do. And upon meeting them, I'd say we'd start talking about nutrition and the proteins and carbs and fats that they've been consuming, and they won't know the difference between a protein or a
Right,
carbohydrate.
yeah.
So you're talking about an athlete that's gone so far not knowing what the difference is between a protein and a carbohydrate. So can you just imagine what our capabilities are if we really understood food?
Are you familiar with Chris Algieri?
Yes.
Yeah, we had him on, and his background is in nutrition,
Yeah.
and he was saying the same thing. He was talking about how important just his knowledge
Yeah.
of the food that's going into his body, which led to his conditioning and his advancement and his evolution in his sport. But it's a crazy thought when you say that, how far we could take ourselves with limited, I guess, sometimes.
You just see
knowledge.
what they're capable of. The footy athletes that I've been dealing with, I tweak the diet based on whether it's a game day, whether it's a training day, the night before game day. So the food changes according to the context.
Yeah. And
And just doing that has created a few standout footy players that I've worked with, and it's great.
Chris actually, this is a good one. Because Chris gave me superfood smoothie.
Smoothie.
Do you have a little smoothie you can share with?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
My favourite one in the morning is, and that's the thing, that's the beauty about smoothies and superfoods. You can put more nutrients into one shake
Yeah.
than you could potentially consume using food for the entire day.
Is that a danger though? With now, this is just a question because I've heard when it comes to fruits, you need to eat your fruits, not juice them, just because.
Better to
Yeah.
eat if you consume things if you've got something like the NutriBullet, which you can use and throw the fruit in there with the skin and benefit, because that's where the nutrients are when it comes
With
to
the
fruit.
skin.
70% of most nutrients when it comes to fruit are in the skin. That's why I eat my kiwis whole. I eat the kiwi fruit whole. Just wash that thing thoroughly, and that's where the nutrients are.
Yeah.
It's in the skin.
So what's in that smoothie? The Moodi smoothie.
The Moodi smoothie. What I have for breakfast, it's normally coconut water,
Yep.
a cup of blueberries, usually half a banana, some peanut butter to slow down the release of the carbs. What else do I put in there? Put in there a teaspoon of goji berries.
Goji berries.
Yeah, a teaspoon of chia seeds, a teaspoon of cacao, raw cacao,
Yep.
and about a quarter of a teaspoon of maca powder, and then some protein powder. Usually, in the morning, I like a plant-based protein. The crew that I'm with now, Body Science, they've got a really good organic plant-based protein, and I just find that it's easier on the gut first thing in the morning.
Like a pea protein
Yeah,
or hemp?
Based on it's pea and rice,
Rice,
yeah,
okay.
but it's a plant-based protein, and that just goes down really, really smoothly.
Yeah, I'm on
Yeah.
board with the maca.
Yeah.
The maca is so underappreciated. The
Yeah,
maca root,
maca's
maca.
really good for hormone balance
Yeah.
and boosting your testosterone
Testosterone.
levels.
Testosterone should be used.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
sad though. I read an article about that because you can only get it in South America.
Yeah.
And they say one day you're not going to be able to even get it because of
I think
the
that-
popularity.
Wow. Yeah.
A lot of
Even chocolate, they said that about.
Yeah, a lot of the sporting bodies are trying to ban maca, but there's no way you can test for something like that. It's a vegetable.
Yeah.
Right, it's a dry root vegetable. So you're not going to be able to. It's like saying I'm going to test to see whether you've eaten sweet potato. Maybe your vitamin A, maybe your vitamin A levels might be pretty high,
through the
but
roof,
it's a bit far fetched. And if it's naturally occurring, it's good for you. Then I think we should be allowed access to it.
I wish they'd go the other way and just stop worrying about limiting things and just see what the human athlete is capable of. If everybody was just,
Because at the end of the day,
you know what I'm saying?
At the
Roided
end-
out, just
At the end-
monsters.
at the end of the day, most of them are like. At the end of the day, these people are getting away with whatever they can get away with.
Especially with recovery, with everything
Yeah.
guys I've spoke to, I've been friends with a world champion, and it's like that's what you need, like
Yeah.
the tendon repair, the muscle repair.
I read an article once that asked 100 Olympic athletes if they would accept a gold medal or take the gold medal or guarantee themselves a gold medal, provided that they would be dead within 5 years. Would they still trade death for the gold medal? And this is a human being that's grown only knowing that particular sport, and their dream would have been the Olympics from day one and winning that gold medal, and all 100 of them said yes.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, they would pick the gold medal. Or
Talk
being
about having the blinders on.
the ability to earn the gold medal.
medal.
That no one wants a gold medal given to them, but the ability to earn a gold medal as a trade-off for a guaranteed death sentence within
For
5
5
years.
years.
And that gives
Holy
you
shit,
it gives you a rough idea of how passionate we are about our passions.
The blinders are definitely on. It's like,
Yeah.
have you heard that segment called "The Madness of Excellence"?
No.
You should YouTube it. And guys, if you're listening, YouTube "Madness of Excellence." It's Joe Rogan talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, and Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
And he taught. This is before Tiger had his legal issues. But to be great at anything, let alone sports, to be the best at, you have to be a little bit crazy.
Without a doubt, I speak
Michael Jordan,
I
yeah.
speak to a lot of the boxers that I work with today, and when they say they're tired after hitting the pads for 6 rounds and doing some core work for 15 minutes, I said the reason why nobody beats, take away his attitude and what you may
Floyd?
think of Floyd, you might love him or you might hate him, but if this gentleman walks into the gym, jumps rope for 45 minutes, does ab work for 30 minutes, hits the bag for 6 or 7 rounds,
spars
and then
probably
he does in a preparation for a 12-round fight, he'll spar for 30 rounds, 3 minutes every round,
And then his road work.
10 fresh opponents, and he'll rotate them over 30 rounds.
That's why he's the best of the best, isn't
And
it?
that's why he's doing these interviews after kicking everyone's ass, and he's not even winded. If you're not willing to do what the best is currently doing, or more, then you shouldn't complain.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, I was talking to Kobe Bryant's shooting. He had a shooting coach, and he was talking about. This was probably in like 2007, 2008, and Kobe turns to him and asks him to start spending more time. This was in the off season after practice, and he was like, so he would stay with Kobe after practice to shoot around, and they'd have to meet in the morning before practice for the shoot around, and Kobe would still be there. He never left. He'd stay there. He'd sleep there, have it set up, and he'd be that old adage of being the first guy and last guy out. And look at Kobe's career, probably one of the best of all time.
The best of the best are always a little bit twisted.
Yeah, you gotta be too. Like I like those stories. Like Mike Tyson fascinates me when he was in his prime. This is when in the Customato days when Tyson talks about he hated training and he told Cuss that one time he wanted to quit. He was like 15, and Cuss said, all the things that make you want to quit. If you can learn to love all of those things that you hate, you'll become a world champion.
Absolutely.
And he was able to embrace that, and he said that was the catalyst for him, getting to the top. But
saying something like that to somebody and then absorbing it are two very, very different things. He may have not absorbed it the first or second time around, but eventually he did, and that's why he did what he did.
We were chatting.
Boxing, youngest world champion.
Youngest world champion. This is a story too about Mike. So, I think it was 1976. Holmes was fighting Ali, and in the front row there was a 14-year-old watching that fight, and he worshipped Ali. He was like idolized Ali, and Ali got beaten up pretty bad, and he retired. It was his last fight, and that 14-year-old went home crying, and the guy that that 14-year-old was with was able to call Ali, and the 14-year-old gets on the phone and tells him, he says, "Muhammad Ali, I'll avenge that loss for you." And 10 years later, Ali was ringside when Mike beat Holmes.
Oh wow!
I know. Like when I heard that story, I asked Larry about
I didn't know
things.
about that.
Yeah, things like that. That passion. It's also one of those things. If you do make it to the top, you better keep working because there's some kid, some boy, some girl who nobody even knows of.
Yeah.
That just has their eyes set on you. Because what do the champions always say? The road to get to the top is hard, but staying there is even harder.
Yes, it's funny you say that. Like I get the occasional email from countries that I can't even pronounce, and it'll be like, you help me overcome obesity, or you help me overcome an eating disorder, for example, and that'll drive me to keep putting up those educational posts.
Yeah,
it'll drive me to continue doing it the next day, even though like you're looking at it and you think that nobody's paying attention, that people are just looking at your photos, but there's somebody somewhere reading your content. There's somebody somewhere that's affected by what you're doing. So
even like us, chatting with you and you educating on us these points and getting to hear your story. Every time Tristan and I get to do this and we have our recap, we leave super inspired. And probably only a handful of our podcasts were able to do like in person like this because some of our guests just live elsewhere. And these are my favorites because
I didn't. That's why I said to you guys, I'd rather do this face to face.
Yeah. That's what we waited to
when you develop just a little bit of rapport, it affects the way you communicate.
Different things come out.
Different things come out, and energy, etc.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It's
We'll have
all-
to come visit the cafe next week or something.
for sure.
Yeah, come in, guys are welcome to come.
It was interesting you were talking about the strength and conditioning of Anthony. It made me think. I think a month ago we went to see Billy and Billy did fight in Bankstown, right?
Yeah, it was in Bankstown.
And the one thing that was so evident, and this is nothing about Hussein, the Cam, obviously, they're great fighters there, but it just looked to me some of the younger guys who were on the undercard, they were just lacking a little bit of that
Strength and
that
conditioning,
power.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I did strength and conditioning with the Billy Hussein team for approximately 4 or 5 years.
Were you on this? Are you with them anymore?
No,
Okay.
no. I stopped working with most boxers, I think, if not all boxers, after I understood more about the culture of the sport. The sport itself is beautiful, but the behind-the-scenes culture, when it comes to promotions and managers and boxing coaches and
All the
people's-
hands in the pot.
Yeah, everyone's trying to do everybody else's job but their own. It puts a
A
foul
damper.
taste in your mouth. And that's it's something that I didn't grow up boxing, so it was something that was all very strange
Just
to me. It
foreign
was
to
all
you.
very new.
Yeah.
So I thought everybody's in the same gym, so we must all be on the same team. And in most gyms, it's not
It's
the
not
case,
like that.
especially when it comes to boxing.
So Moody, before we let you go, first off, it's a personality question we like to ask everyone. If you had, so you're having a private party, you're having a dinner, and you get 5 guests to invite to your dinner. One, you can't be family and friends, and 2, they could be dead or alive. What 5 people are you picking to come to your party?
5 people. Mike Tyson definitely be the first one. I've always wanted to meet Mike since I grew up watching Mike Tyson,
Yeah.
so it'd have to be Mike Tyson.
He shows up a lot.
I think who brought my attention to charity and humanitarian work would be Angelina Jolie. Just I find her super inspirational. She's pretty easy on the eyes too. So
Yeah,
that
I
always
wouldn't
helps.
argue against that one.
That always helps. I think Einstein. Einstein definitely.
Yeah, these answers. I think Einstein was picked by an American, Bornstein. Adam Bornstein.
Yeah,
He's Born Fitness, but yeah, he threw him in there too.
Einstein definitely, because I think somebody like that can always make you reflect on your own work a little bit deeper.
I was listening to. It's interesting about people from different time periods.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a podcast, and they were saying that because you have a guy like Einstein, he lived in a different time period than us. If you would have him today,
Yeah.
he wouldn't be the smartest person.
Absolutely, but
I wonder how you would prove that. See, I didn't really agree with the podcaster because I was like, "What?
I don't
What do you mean?
I don't think that's holistically true.
Yeah, I didn't agree
Because
with you.
he didn't have the resources that we have now. So imagine Einstein was exposed to the resources that
Yeah.
we had. What kind of a human being you'd be dealing with?
Yeah, we have so at the drop of a dime we can learn if we want. It's amazing not many people do it though. Like you said, you learned about competing
Yeah.
by reading in books, on your own time. That's a fascinating point. I like what you said about that.
It'll also be, I think, Hein Gracie, because I didn't get to meet him before he passed. So I would have loved to meet him. The guy that my coach looked up to, so that would have been amazing. And the gentleman that wrote this book, Eckhart Tolle.
Oh, Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
I have this in my locker right now.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to meet this gentleman.
Yeah.
Because I would love to just listen to him speak.
Have you read Stillness Speaks?
No.
Okay,
no.
Stillness Speaks is.
I've read this about 3 times
Yeah.
because every time you read it, it means something else to you.
Man,
depending on where you are at what stage you are in your life.
Yeah,
so-
being present.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Dude, Eckhart Tolle. I first heard of him about 3 years ago. My girlfriend's father gave me Stillness Speaks,
Yeah,
and it's really like maybe 50 pages,
yeah.
and it's a really quick read. But you read it and you're like, I probably read it like 8 times.
Stillness Speaks.
Yeah, put that one in. And then what you find about Eckhart Tolle's work is I always find myself giving it to people. I'm like, dude, I have a book
And
for
you don't even know why.
Yeah, it's like-
but you've always given it to the right person at the right time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my buddy Dave
Yeah.
Brown, and he's given it back to me, and it's one of those things that I find enjoyment in that now. Like if I'm reading a good piece, and if there's somebody in my life that I think it could have an effect on that, how it's affected me. But I like sharing that.
Yeah.
But that's crazy that you pulled that out of
It's
your
just-
bag.
it's
That's
just-
awesome, man.
It's just energy, man.
Yeah.
It's just like you you put it out there and
it comes back.
it comes back.
We chat. How about they talk about the law of attraction. When I say they really successful people, whether they're entrepreneurs, fighters, a lot of the fighters I talk to say the same thing. And you think about the power of the mind, and it's the law of attraction for a reason. It's a law, and what we think and what we create in our head tends to create around us.
Absolutely.
And reading Eckhart Tolle's works and books like that, it just, I guess, I don't want to say prove, but it makes sense to me, the importance of being around the right people, the importance of, setting goals for yourself, holding yourself accountable.
Yeah, it's as you get older, you realize that time is the only thing that you can't get back. So, and it becomes more and more important to you. So you want to really spend your time with people that have something to bring to the table. And I'm not talking about from a business perspective or from a financial point of view, but if you sit with somebody for half an hour, there's half an hour you're not going to get back. So if you at least, at the bare minimum, you want to walk away feeling a little bit happier, a little bit more enlightened than when you first arrived.
Yeah.
And if you can't get that from whether it be an acquaintance or your friends or the people that you spend time with, then you really have to question who it is you're really spending time with and who you should be spending time with.
That's right. You have to feel moved.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes is find the giants. Find the giants in your life. Like I think it was it might have been Einstein. I'm gonna butcher it, guys. Google it for me. But it's if I've seen farther than you, it's not because I'm wiser. It's because I've been standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
And so find those giants in your life, and that's awesome.
People that lift you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's more often than not, especially. I think it becomes almost just like negativity could be addicting, but so is positivity. And then you start realizing the importance of choosing to be around the right type of people. And like you said, not for money, but for those feelings, like just how they make you feel when you leave. Also, before you leave, Moodi, could you let our listeners know where to find you at on social media and all the other things?
Social media, it's Instagram at Moodi Dennaoui, Moodi, and a very annoying and long surname, Dennaoui. So it's Moodi Dennaoui, and that's the same on Twitter and on Facebook. My website's the same, www.moodidennaoui.com, or I'll see you at the cafe.
Excellent, man.
Moodi's.
This was really awesome. I really appreciate your time, and we're definitely going to have you on again, Moodi.
I've got some training videos and nutrition videos coming soon. We're going to start filming with Body Science, I think, within the next week. We should have some Olympic athletes, some footy players on there too, so
Stay tuned, guys. Moodi Dennaoui. And I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot for stopping by.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I got something for your mind, your body, and your soul. I got something for your mind, your body, and your soul.
The Vision Board Podcast, hosted by Jonny and Tristan.